The transport ship landed at New Geneva Research Station with a soft hum. Dr. Zexthera stepped out of the vessel, her 4 long arms carrying several cases of equipment. She was tall, much taller than the humans who waited to greet her. Her skin was pale blue, and her large eyes moved slowly as she looked around the landing bay. Dr. Lisa Harper walked forward to meet the alien visitor. She had studied the Valkorian language for 2 years to prepare for this day. Behind her stood Jake Sullivan, the station director, and several other scientists. They all felt nervous but excited. This was the first time an alien had come to their research station. "Welcome to Earth, Dr. Zexthera," Lisa said in careful Valkorian. Her words sounded strange to human ears, with clicking sounds and long vowels. Dr. Zexthera tilted her head, which was larger than a human head. "Thank you, Dr. Harper. I am pleased to be here for our exchange program." Her voice was deep and musical. She spoke English well, though some words sounded different when she said them. Jake Sullivan stepped forward. "We're honored to have you here. Your people's research on thinking and learning is famous across the galaxy." Dr. Zexthera's large eyes focused on Jake. "Yes, the Valkorians have studied the mind for many centuries. We have learned much about how young ones develop their thinking skills. This is why I am here, to compare our findings with human research." Lisa led the group through the station's main corridors. The walls were white and clean, with windows showing the Earth's surface below. The station orbited high above the planet, and the view was beautiful. Dr. Zexthera stopped to look out one of the windows. "Your planet is very colorful," she said. "Valkoria has mostly gray and purple landscapes. This blue and green is quite different." "We hope you'll find many things different here," Lisa replied, "but in good ways." They walked to the main conference room where more scientists waited. Dr. Zexthera set down her cases and opened one of them. Inside were several objects that looked like puzzles, but they were unlike anything the humans had seen before. The shapes were complex, with moving parts that seemed to shift and change colors. "These are our standard cognitive assessment tools," Dr. Zexthera explained. "We use them to test how well our young ones can think and solve problems." She picked up one of the devices. It was about the size of a human head, with many geometric shapes connected together. "How do they work?" asked Dr. Karen Mills, one of the station's psychologists. Dr. Zexthera touched several parts of the device in a specific order. The shapes began to move and rearrange themselves. Colors flowed across the surface like liquid light. The test taker must find the correct sequence to make all parts align in harmony. It measures spatial thinking, pattern recognition, and logical reasoning. The humans watched in amazement as the alien device continued its complex dance of shapes and colors. Dr. Zexthera continued touching different parts, and slowly the chaos began to form a pattern. After several minutes, all the pieces clicked into place, and the device glowed with a steady, pleasant light. "This is a Level 3 assessment," Dr. Zexthera said. "Our young ones typically master this around age 15 of your years. Before that, they work with simpler versions." She gestured to other devices in her case. "The progression is very important. Each level builds on the previous one. It takes patience and careful training." Dr. Harper nodded. "That's similar to how we approach education here, though our methods might be different. We'd love to see how human children respond to these assessments." "Yes, that would be very interesting," Dr. Zexthera agreed. "From our studies of human culture, we understand that your species learns differently than ours. Valkorians are very methodical. We learn step by step, building knowledge slowly but surely. We rarely make mistakes because we are so careful." Jake Sullivan smiled. "Humans can be methodical too, but we also tend to try different approaches. Sometimes we make mistakes, but we learned from them quickly. Dr. Zexthyra's large eyes blinked. Slowly. This was how Valkorians showed they were thinking deeply. Interesting. Our research suggests that making mistakes slows down learning. We teach our young to think carefully before acting, to avoid errors that waste time. Well, you'll have plenty of chances to observe human learning while you're here, Lisa said. We have several families living on the station. Some of them have children of different ages. Excellent, Dr. Zexthera said. I have brought assessment tools suitable for various development levels. I am curious to see how human young ones approach problem-solving tasks. Do they follow systematic methods like Valkorian children? Dr. Mills laughed softly. Human children can be quite unpredictable. They don't always follow the methods we teach them. Sometimes they surprise us with creative solutions we never expected. Dr. Zexthera tilted her head again. Creative solutions? This is unusual. In Valkorian education, there is typically one correct method for each problem. Creativity comes later, after the basic skills are mastered. You might find human children very different, Jake said. They often find new ways to solve problems, even when they're very young. The alien professor carefully packed her assessment tools back into their case. This will make for very interesting research. I look forward to beginning our studies. Perhaps I will learn something new about how minds develop. As the meeting ended, Dr. Zexthera felt excited about the work ahead. She had studied reports about human intelligence, but seeing it in person would be much more valuable. She expected to find similarities between human and Valkorian development, with perhaps some minor differences in approach. She had no idea how wrong she was about. To be. 3 days later, Dr. Zexthera was walking through the station with Dr. Harper. They were going to the residential section to meet some of the families who live there. The alien professor wanted to observe human children in their normal environment before starting any formal tests. The families here are very excited to meet you, Lisa said as they walked out a corridor lined with family quarters. Most of the children have never seen an alien before. I hope I do not frighten them, Dr. Zexthera replied. Valkorian children are taught about other species from a young age, but I understand human children might react differently. They passed through a set of doors into a large recreation area. The space was filled with comfortable chairs, games, and play areas. Several children were playing with various toys and activities. Parents sat nearby, watching and talking with each other. Dr. Zexthera stopped walking. Her large eyes focused on a small human girl who was sitting alone at a low table. The child looked to be about 8 years old, with dark hair tied back in a ponytail. She was completely focused on something in front of her. What is she doing? Dr. Zexthera asked. Quietly, Lisa looked over at the girl. Oh, that's Katie Martinez. Her father, Carlos, works as one of our engineers. She's playing with puzzles, I think. Dr. Zexthera moved closer to get a better look. Katie had several wooden blocks arranged in front of her. They were simple cube shapes, but each one had different colors and patterns on each side. She was moving them around quickly, turning them and rearranging them. The alien professor watched in fascination. Katie's small hands moved with surprising speed and confidence. She would pick up a block, look at it for just a moment, then place it in a specific position. Within minutes, she had arranged all 12 blocks into a perfect pattern where all the colors and designs matched perfectly. Interesting, Dr. Zexthera murmured. That appears to be a spatial reasoning puzzle. Katie looked up at the sound of the alien's voice. Her eyes went wide when she saw Dr. Zexthera, but instead of looking scared, she seemed curious and excited. Wow, are you an alien? Katie asked with a big smile. Dr. Zexthera looked at Lisa, unsure how to respond. Lisa nodded encouragingly. Yes, I am from a planet called Valkoria, the professor said carefully. My name is Dr. Zexthera. That's a cool name, Katie said. I'm Katie. Do you want to see my puzzle? I just finished it. Dr. Zexthera moved closer to the table. The wooden blocks were indeed arranged in a complex pattern. Each block had been positioned so that the colors and geometric designs flowed perfectly from one to the next. It was more complicated than it had looked from a distance. How long did it take you to solve this? Dr. Zexthera asked. Katie shrugged. I don't know. Not very long. Maybe a few minutes. I like puzzles. They're fun. A man approached the table. He was tall with dark hair and kind eyes. Katie, you're not bothering our visitor, are you? He asked. This must be Carlos Martinez, Lisa said. Carlos, I'd like you to meet Dr. Zexthera, our visiting researcher from Valcoria. Carlos extended his hand. It's an honor to meet you, Doctor. I hope Katie isn't being too forward. She's very curious about everything. Not at all, Dr. Zexthera replied, shaking his hand carefully with one of her forearms. I was actually impressed by her puzzle-solving skills. This arrangement is quite sophisticated. Carlos looked down at Katie's blocks. Oh, that old thing? She's been playing with those blocks since she was 5. She can solve that pattern in her sleep now. Katie, why don't you show Dr. Zexthera some of your other puzzles? Katie's face lit up. She reached under the table and pulled out a small box. Inside were several more puzzle toys. There was a metal puzzle made of interlocking rings, a wooden sphere that came apart into many pieces, and something that looked like a cube made of smaller cubes. This one's my favorite, Katie said, picking up the metal ring puzzle. My dad brought it back from his last trip to Earth. It's really tricky. Dr. Zexthera watched as Katie began working on the metal puzzle. The rings were connected in a complex way, and the goal seemed to be separating them completely. Katie's small fingers worked quickly, twisting and turning the metal pieces. How many times have you solved this puzzle? Dr. Zexthera asked. Lots of times, Katie said without looking up from her work. But I always forget exactly how I did it before, so it's still fun to figure out again. The alien professor was puzzled by this answer. You forget the solution? Why do you not memorize the correct sequence? Katie paused in her work and looked up. Well, if I memorized it, then it wouldn't be a puzzle anymore, would it? It would just be following directions. The fun part is figuring it out. Dr. Zexthera's large eyes blinked slowly. This was a very different approach than she expected. Valcorian children worked hard to memorize correct solutions so they could repeat them perfectly. There, Katie said suddenly. The metal rings came apart in her hands. That one took a little longer because I tried a different way than last time. A different way? Dr. Zexthera asked. Yeah, I was wondering if I could solve it by working from the outside in instead of inside out. It worked, but it took more steps. Katie began putting the rings back together. Want to try it? Before Dr. Zexthera could answer, Katie had reassembled the puzzle and was holding it out to her. The alien professor took it carefully in her hands. The metal felt cold and smooth. She began to work on it, trying to remember the sequence she had just watched Katie use. After several minutes, Dr. Zexthera was still working on the puzzle. She had managed to separate a few of the rings, but the rest remained stubbornly connected. She could feel Katie watching her with interest, but not impatience. This is more difficult than it appeared, Dr. Zexthera admitted. Oh, that's okay, Katie said cheerfully. It took me forever the first time I tried it. Dad had to help me. But once you get the hang of it, you start to see the pattern. What pattern? Dr. Zexthera asked. Katie thought for a moment. Well, it's hard to explain. It's like the rings want to move in certain ways. If you pay attention to how they feel when you turn them, they kind of tell you what to do next. Dr. Zexthera stared at the child. This was not how Valkorians described problem-solving. They talked about logical sequences and systematic approaches, not about objects wanting to move or telling them what to do. That's an interesting way to describe it, Dr. Zexthera said slowly. Katie has always been good with puzzles, Carlos said. Even when she was really little, she could figure out toys that were meant for older kids. We used to think she was just lucky, but it happens too often to be luck. Dr. Zexthera finally managed to separate the metal rings. Katie clapped her hands happily. See? You did it. Want to try the wooden sphere next? That one's even more fun. The alien professor looked at the wooden sphere Katie was holding. It appeared to be made of many interlocking pieces. This was clearly a complex three-dimensional puzzle that would challenge spatial reasoning skills. I would be very interested to see you solve that, Dr. Zexthera said. Katie smiled and began working on the wooden sphere. Her fingers moved confidently over the surface, finding hidden grooves and pressure points. Within minutes, the sphere began to come apart, revealing its internal structure. Dr. Zexthera watched in growing amazement. Katie was solving these puzzles with a speed and intuition that seemed impossible for such a young human. According to everything the professor knew about cognitive development, this child should not be capable of such advanced spatial reasoning. Something very interesting was happening here. The next morning, Dr. Zexthera arrived at the recreation area early. She carried one of her Valkorian assessment cases. She had spent most of the night thinking about Katie Martinez and her puzzle-solving abilities. The alien professor wanted to understand what she had observed. Lisa Harper was waiting for her, along with Carlos and Katie. The little girl looked excited and curious. She kept looking at the case Dr. Zexthera was carrying. Thank you for agreeing to this, Dr. Zexthera said to Carlos. I would like to see how Katie responds to some of our Valkorian cognitive assessments. It is purely for research purposes. Katie's excited about it, Carlos replied. She loves new puzzles and challenges. Just don't be disappointed if she gets frustrated and gives up. These are probably much harder than her regular toys. Dr. Zexthera set her case on the table and opened it. Katie immediately leaned forward to get a better look. The case contained several of the strange, colorful devices the professor had shown the scientists earlier. These look awesome, Katie said. They're so shiny and complex. How do they work? Each one is a different type of thinking test, Dr. Zexthera explained. They measure different mental skills like pattern recognition, spatial reasoning, and logical thinking. Normally, we start young Valkorians with the simplest version and work up slowly over many years. Katie nodded seriously. That makes sense. You have to learn the basics before you can do the hard stuff. Dr. Zexthera was pleased by this response. Perhaps human children were more similar to Valkorian young ones than she had thought. She selected the simplest device from her case, a level 1 assessment that Valkorian children typically mastered around age 10. We will start with this one, she said, placing it in front of Katie. The goal is to make all the colored sections match by moving these control points in the correct sequence. Katie picked up the device and turned it over in her hands. It was smooth and warm to the touch, with several sections that glowed with different colors. There were small raised areas that could be pressed or turned. Are there any rules about how I can move these? Katie asked. No specific rules, Dr. Zexthera replied. You must discover the correct method through experimentation and observation. Katie nodded and began working. She pressed one of the raised areas, and part of the device changed color. She tried another control, and a different section shifted. Dr. Zexthera watched carefully, expecting to see the systematic approach that Valkorian children used. Instead, Katie seemed to be playing with the device. She would try one thing, see what happened, then try something completely different. She was humming softly and swinging her legs as she worked. This was not the careful, methodical approach Dr. Zexthera expected, but something remarkable was happening. Even though Katie's approach seemed random, she was making progress. The colors on the device were slowly starting to align. After just 3 minutes, all the sections glowed with the same soft blue light. "There," Katie said, setting the device down. "That was fun. It's like the colors wanted to match up. You just had to figure out how to help them do it." Dr. Zexthera stared at the completed assessment. 3 minutes. The average time for Valkorian children to complete this test was 25 minutes, and they usually needed several attempts. "That was very quick," Dr. Zexthera said carefully. "Are you certain you have not seen this type of puzzle before?" "Nope, never," Katie replied cheerfully. "But it reminded me of this music box I have at home. You have to press different buttons to make it play the right tune. Same kind of idea." Dr. Zethera made notes on her datapad. She selected another device from her case, a Level 2 assessment. This one was significantly more complex, with multiple moving parts and a more sophisticated color pattern system. "Let us try this one," she said. Katie accepted the new device eagerly. This one was larger and had more control points. The color patterns were more intricate, and some sections moved independently when others were adjusted. Dr. Zexthera expected this to take much longer. Level 2 assessments usually required Valkorian children to think very carefully about each move. They would often spend minutes considering each action before proceeding. Katie started working immediately. She experimented with different controls, watching how each change affected the overall pattern. She made several moves that seemed to make things worse, but she didn't appear frustrated. Instead, she treated each mistake as information. "Oh, interesting," Katie murmured when one of her actions caused half the device to change colors at once. "So these sections are connected somehow." She continued working, her approach becoming more focused as she understood the device's logic. After 8 minutes, this assessment was also complete. Dr. Zexthera checked her notes. 8 minutes for a Level 2 assessment. The Valkorian average was 45 minutes. "Katie, may I ask you something?" Dr. Zexthera said. "How do you know what to try next when you are working on these puzzles?" Katie thought about this question seriously. "Well, it's like the puzzle tells me what it wants. Not with words, but by how it feels and looks. When I do something right, everything seems to fit better. When I do something wrong, it feels stuck or uncomfortable." "You rely on intuition rather than logical analysis?" "I guess so," Katie said. "I mean, I think about it too, but thinking too hard sometimes makes it harder. It's better to just play with it until it makes sense." Dr. Zexthera selected a Level 3 assessment. This was the device she had demonstrated to the human scientists on her first day. Adult Valkorians typically took 30 to 60 minutes. To complete this test, Katie accepted the new challenge with obvious excitement. "This one's really pretty," she said, admiring the complex geometric patterns that shifted across its surface. As Katie began working on the Level 3 assessment, Dr. Zexthera noticed something unexpected. The child's approach was becoming more sophisticated. She was starting to recognize underlying principles that applied across different puzzle types. She would make connections between what she had learned from the previous tests and apply them to the new challenge. "This part works like the blue section in the last one," Katie said to herself, manipulating one area of the device. "And if I do this here? Yes, that makes this part over here change the same way." She was not just solving individual puzzles. She was learning general problem-solving strategies. This was behavior Dr. Zexthera had only observed in much older Valkorian students. The Level 3 assessment took Katie 12 minutes to complete. "These are really fun," Katie said, looking hopefully at Dr. Zexthera's case. "Do you have any harder ones?" Dr. Zexthera's hands trembled slightly as she made notes. Harder ones? The child had just completed assessments that challenged teenage Valkorians, and she was asking for more difficult tests? "I have one more that might interest you," Dr. Zexthera said slowly. She reached into her case and withdrew a level 5 assessment. This was a device she had brought primarily for demonstration purposes. She had never intended to use it in actual testing with children. Katie's eyes lit up when she saw the new device. It was the most complex yet, with multiple layers of moving parts and sophisticated light patterns that seemed to flow like liquid. "Wow, this one's amazing," Katie said. "It's like holding a little galaxy." She began working on the level 5 assessment with the same playful confidence she had shown with all the others. But this time, Dr. Zexthera noticed something that made her question everything she thought she knew about cognitive development. Katie was not just solving the puzzle. She was improving her technique as she worked. Her movements became more efficient, her understanding deeper. By the time she was halfway through the assessment, she was working faster than when she had started. When Katie completed the level 5 assessment in 18 minutes, Dr. Zexthera realized that she was witnessing something unprecedented. This human child was demonstrating cognitive abilities that challenged fundamental assumptions about learning and development. "Do you have any more?" Katie asked hopefully. Dr. Zexthera looked at her empty case, then at the small human girl who had just solved puzzles that most adults in the galaxy would find challenging. "I think," Dr. Zexthera said quietly, "I need to contact my research team. We may need to bring more assessment tools." Dr. Zexthera spent the entire night sending reports to the Valkorian Science Council. She sent her data, her recordings, and her observations about Katie Martinez. The response from her colleagues was exactly what she expected: disbelief. "Measurement error," came the first reply. "Check your instruments." "Cultural misunderstanding," suggested another. "Human puzzles may appear more complex than they actually are." "Impossible," stated a third message. "No child of any species could complete level 5 assessments at that speed." But Dr. Zexthera knew what she had seen. She had triple-checked her equipment and timing devices. Everything was working perfectly. The human child had genuinely solved advanced cognitive assessments faster than most adult Valkorians. She decided to conduct more tests, but this time with additional human children. If Katie's abilities were somehow typical for her species, it would revolutionize everything the galaxy knew about cognitive development. Lisa Harper helped her contact several families on the station. Soon, Dr. Zexthera had arranged to test 5 human children of different ages. The first child was Ben Clark, age 6. His parents brought him to the testing area looking nervous. Ben was smaller than Katie, with blonde hair and curious blue eyes. He seemed shy at first, hiding behind his mother's leg. "It's okay, Ben," his mother said gently. "Dr. Zexthera just wants to see how you solve puzzles. It's like a game." Dr. Zexthera started Ben with a level 1 assessment, the same one Katie had completed in 3 minutes. She expected Ben to struggle with it. Being younger than Katie, Ben approached the puzzle differently than Katie had. Where Katie had been playful and intuitive, Ben was more methodical. He would make a change, study the results carefully, then make another change. But like Katie, he showed no fear of making mistakes. "Oops, that made it worse," Ben said cheerfully when one of his actions scrambled the color pattern. "But now I know not to do that again." Ben completed the level 1 assessment in 7 minutes. For a 6-year-old of any species, this was remarkable. Dr. Zexthera made careful notes and moved on to the level 2 test. The pattern continued. Ben solved the level 2 assessment in 15 minutes, slower than Katie, but still much faster than Valkorian children his age. What fascinated Dr. Zexthera was how Ben learned from each attempt. He would try something, see what happened, and immediately apply that knowledge to his next move. Next came Amy Foster, age 10. She was older than Katie and approached the puzzles with a more analytical mind. Amy asked questions about how the devices worked and tried to understand the underlying principles before beginning. So the goal is to make all the colors match? Amy asked, examining the Level 1 assessment carefully. Yes. By finding the correct sequence of control inputs, Dr. Zexthera replied. Amy nodded and began working. Her approach was systematic, testing each control point to understand its function before attempting to solve the overall puzzle. She completed the Level 1 test in 4 minutes. But what happened next amazed Dr. Zexthera even more. When Amy moved to the Level 2 assessment, she immediately recognized similarities to the first puzzle. This one has the same basic structure as the last one, Amy said, but with more layers of complexity. If I apply the same principles, but in a more sophisticated way, ... Amy solved the Level 2 assessment in 6 minutes. She was learning to generalize from her previous experience and apply those lessons to new challenges. Tyler Brooks, age 7, brought yet another different approach. Tyler was energetic and talkative, narrating his thought process as he worked. Okay, so when I press this, the red part changes to blue, he said, working on his first puzzle. And when I press this other one, the blue part changes to green. So if I want to make everything the same color, I need to figure out the right order to press them. Tyler completed his tests while bouncing in his chair and chatting constantly. But despite his scattered attention, he solved the puzzles with impressive speed and accuracy. The final child was Emma Davis, age 9. Emma was quiet and focused, studying each puzzle carefully before making any moves. She had a different strategy than the others. She seemed to visualize the solution in her mind before beginning. I think I see how this works, Emma would say, then execute a series of moves without pause. Her solutions were often the most efficient, requiring fewer steps than the other children had used. After testing all 5 children, Dr. Zexthera sat in her quarters reviewing the data. Every human child had demonstrated abilities that far exceeded what she had expected. But more importantly, each child had shown a different approach to problem solving. Katie was intuitive and playful. Ben was methodical but adaptable. Amy was analytical and strategic. Tyler was energetic but insightful. Emma was careful and efficient. Yet all of them had succeeded at tasks that challenged much older Valkorian students. Dr. Zexthera realized something profound was happening. These human children were not just solving puzzles, they were demonstrating different forms of intelligence. Valkorian education emphasized one correct approach to each problem. But these humans were showing that there could be many correct approaches. The next day, Dr. Zexthera received an urgent message from the Valkorian Science Council. They were sending a senior researcher to verify her findings. Dr. Velfok, one of the most respected cognitive scientists in the galaxy, would arrive within the week to conduct independent assessments. Dr. Zexthera felt nervous about this development, but also excited. She was confident in her observations, and she believed Dr. Velfok would reach the same conclusions. But something unexpected happened before Dr. Velfok arrived. Katie Martinez approached Dr. Zexthera in the recreation area, carrying a small device she had made from spare parts. Dr. Zexthera, Katie said, I've been thinking about your puzzles. They're really fun, but I had an idea for a different kind of puzzle. I made this one myself. Want to try it? Dr. Zexthera looked at Katie's creation. It was clearly made from simple materials, pieces of metal, colored plastic, and what looked like electronic components from broken toys. But it was arranged in a complex pattern that seemed somehow familiar yet completely original. You created this puzzle yourself? Dr. Zexthera asked. Yeah, Katie replied proudly. I wanted to see if I could make one that worked like yours, but was different. This one changes based on how you solve it. Every time you play with it, it becomes a new puzzle. Dr. Zexthera took Katie's creation and began to examine it. As she worked with the device, she realized that Katie had not just copied the Valkorian puzzle designs. She had understood the underlying principles and created something entirely new. The device was adaptive. It responded to the user's solving style and adjusted its difficulty accordingly. It was more sophisticated than many professional assessment tools that Dr. Zexthera knew about. Katie, Dr. Zexthera said slowly, how did you know how to build? This? Katie shrugged. I just thought about what made your puzzles fun and tried to make something that would be even more fun. I asked my dad to help me with the electronic parts, but the design was my idea. Dr. Zexthera realized she was looking at something unprecedented. This human child had not just mastered alien puzzle-solving techniques. She had innovated beyond them. She had taken existing concepts and created something genuinely new and better. When Dr. Zexthera tried to solve Katie's puzzle, she found it more challenging than her own Level 5 assessments. The adaptive nature of the device meant that it was constantly evolving, requiring her to think in ways she had never needed to. Before Dot, it took her over an hour to complete Katie's puzzle. That was really hard, Dr. Zexthera admitted when she finally succeeded. Katie grinned. I know, but wasn't it fun? I made it so that every person who solves it has to find their own way. There's no single right answer. Dr. Zexthera stared at the small human girl. Katie had just articulated something that challenged the very foundation of Valkorian educational philosophy. The idea that there could be multiple correct solutions to a single problem was revolutionary. She began to understand that her research was about to change everything the galaxy thought it knew about intelligence, learning, and problem-solving. And it was all thanks to a group of human children who saw puzzles not as tests to be passed, but as games to be enjoyed. Dr. Velthak arrived at New Geneva Research Station with a team of 3 other Valkorian scientists. They brought advanced monitoring equipment and additional assessment tools. Dr. Velthak was older than Dr. Zexthera, with darker blue skin and more formal mannerisms. He clearly had doubts about the reports he had received. Dr. Zexthera, he said in their first meeting, I have reviewed your data multiple times. While I respect your research abilities, these results seem highly improbable. We must consider the possibility of systematic error or cultural misinterpretation. I understand your skepticism, Dr. Zexthera replied. I felt the same way initially, but I have verified and re-verified my findings. I invite you to conduct your own independent assessments. Dr. Velthak nodded curtly. That is precisely what we intend to do. We have brought our most advanced assessment tools and monitoring equipment. If these human children possess the abilities you claim, we will document them properly. The testing began the next day. Dr. Velthak's team set up their equipment in the main conference room. They had devices that could measure brain activity, response times, and problem-solving patterns in real time. Everything was designed to eliminate any possibility of error or fraud. Katie Martinez was the first child to be tested. She entered the room looking curious about all the new equipment. Sensors were attached to monitor her vital signs and brain activity while she worked. Hello, Katie, Dr. Velthak said formally. We are going to repeat some of the tests you did with Dr. Zexthera, but with our own equipment to make sure everything is accurate. Katie nodded cheerfully. Okay. Are these new puzzles different from the last ones? Some are the same, some are different, Dr. Velthak replied. We want to see how consistently you can solve them. Dr. Velthek started with a Level 3 assessment, much harder than Dr. Zexthera had originally planned to use. He wanted to see if Katie could really handle advanced challenges, or if the previous results had been somehow inflated. Katie picked up the device and began working immediately. The monitoring equipment showed her brain activity patterns, heart rate, and stress levels. Dr. Velthek watched the displays carefully, expecting to see signs of strain or confusion. Instead, the monitor showed something remarkable. Katie's brain was working in patterns that Dr. Velthek had never seen before. Different regions were activating simultaneously, creating connections that seemed impossible. Her stress levels remained low throughout the test, as if she was genuinely enjoying the challenge. Katie completed the Level 3 assessment in 11 minutes. Interesting, Dr. Velthek muttered, making notes. Let us try a Level 4 assessment. The Level 4 test was even more complex. Dr. Velthek expected this to finally reveal the limits of Katie's abilities. Level 4 assessments were typically reserved for adult Valkorians with advanced training. Katie worked on the new puzzle with the same relaxed focus she had shown before. The monitoring equipment continued to show her unique brain activity patterns. After 22 minutes, she completed the Level 4 assessment successfully. Dr. Velthek, one of his assistants, whispered, "The brain scans are showing cognitive patterns we have never documented before." Her mind is processing information in multiple pathways simultaneously. Dr. Velthek stared at the data displays. Everything they were measuring confirmed Dr. Zexthera's original findings. This human child was demonstrating cognitive abilities that challenged fundamental assumptions about intelligence. "Let me try the Level 5 assessment," Katie said eagerly. "Dr. Zexthera let me do one of those last week. It was really fun." Dr. Velthek hesitated. Level 5 assessments were extremely difficult. Even experienced Valkorian researchers sometimes struggled with them. But his scientific curiosity overcame his caution. Katie worked on the Level 5 assessment for 31 minutes. During that time, the monitoring equipment recorded brain activity patterns that Dr. Velthek's team had never seen in any species. When Katie completed the test successfully, the room fell silent. "Do you have any harder ones?" Katie asked, looking hopefully at Dr. Velthek's equipment cases. Dr. Velthek looked at his assistants. They had brought Level 6 and Level 7 assessments, but those were research tools used only by the most advanced cognitive scientists. They were not meant for children of any species. "Perhaps we should test the other children first," Dr. Velthek said carefully. Over the next 2 days, Dr. Velthek's team tested Ben, Amy, Tyler, and Emma. Each child demonstrated the same kinds of advanced abilities, though with different approaches and styles. The monitoring equipment confirmed that all of them showed unique brain activity patterns. But the most shocking moment came when Katie returned on the 3rd day, carrying her homemade puzzle. "Dr. Velthek," she said, "I made some improvements to my puzzle based on watching your tests. Want to try the new version?" Dr. Velthek examined Katie's creation. It was clearly more sophisticated than what she had shown Dr. Zexthera. She had incorporated new elements and made the adaptive features more complex. "This is remarkable," Dr. Velthek said. "How did you know to make these modifications?" "Well, I watched how your equipment measured brain patterns," Katie explained. "I thought it would be cool to make a puzzle that could respond to how someone's mind works. So I added these parts that change based on what the person is thinking." Dr. Velthek stared at the device. Katie was describing a concept that Valkorian scientists had only theorized about. She had actually built a primitive version of an adaptive cognitive interface, something that existed only in advanced research laboratories. When Dr. Velthek tried to solve Katie's improved puzzle, he found it nearly impossible. The device seemed to read his problem-solving approach and constantly adapted to challenge him in new ways. It took him over 2 hours to complete it, and even then he was not certain he had truly solved it, or simply reached an acceptable end. "State, Katie," Dr. Velfeck said slowly, "where did you learn about adaptive cognitive interfaces?" "I don't know what that means," Katie replied honestly. "I just thought it would be more fun if the puzzle could learn about the person playing with it and give them exactly the right amount of challenge." Dr. Velfeck realized that Katie had independently developed advanced concepts that took Valkorian researchers decades to understand. She had done it not through formal study, but through intuitive experimentation and play. That evening, Dr. Velfeck sent an urgent report to the Valkorian Science Council. His message was brief, but revolutionary. All previous reports confirmed. Human cognitive development follows completely different patterns than previously understood. These children demonstrate adaptive intelligence that exceeds our theoretical models. Recommend immediate expansion of research program and fundamental revision of Galactic Cognitive Development Standards. The response came quickly. Impossible. Request you return immediately for psychological evaluation. Dr. Velfeck looked at Dr. Zexthyra. It seems our colleagues are not ready to accept these findings. Then we must make them impossible too. Ignore, Dr. Zexthyra replied. We will continue our research and gather more evidence. Eventually, the truth will be undeniable. Dr. Velfeck nodded. I believe you are correct. These human children are showing us that intelligence can develop in ways we never imagined. They are not just learning to solve problems. They are learning to think about thinking itself. Over the following weeks, both Valkorian scientists worked with more human families on the station. They documented dozens of children who showed similar abilities. Each child had a unique approach, but all of them demonstrated cognitive flexibility that far exceeded anything in the galactic scientific literature. The most profound realization came when Dr. Zexthyra observed Katie teaching other children how to solve puzzles. Katie was not just passing on specific solutions. She was teaching them how to think creatively about problems they had never seen before. Human education is fundamentally different from ours, Dr. Zexthyra explained to Dr. Velfeck. Valkorians teach correct methods and expect students to follow them precisely. Humans teach general principles and encourage students to develop their own approaches. The result, Dr. Velfeck added, is that human children learn to adapt and innovate, while Valkorian children learn to perfect established techniques. Both approaches had value, but the human method produced something that the galaxy had never seen before. Children who could think beyond the boundaries of what they had been taught. 3 months later, Dr. Zexthyra stood before the Galactic Cognitive Research Consortium, presenting her findings to scientists from dozens of species. The evidence was overwhelming. Human children possessed cognitive abilities that challenged everything the galaxy thought it knew about intelligence and learning. The implications are profound. Dr. Zexthyra concluded her presentation. We have discovered a species that prioritizes adaptive thinking over methodical precision. Their children do not just learn to solve problems. They learn to find new kinds of solutions that no one has ever considered before. In the audience, representatives from advanced civilizations across the galaxy sat in stunned silence. For centuries, they had assumed that intelligence followed predictable patterns. The humans were proving that assumption wrong. Katie Martinez, now 9 years old, had no idea that her love of puzzles had revolutionized galactic understanding.